Internet people, and welcome to the chaotic reading wrap-up where all the titles start with M. I didn't do this on purpose. I went to the library and I had books at home that I wanted to read, and all of them have an M as the title. Yeah, all are M words. Yeah, that I don't know why. I don't know how this happened, but I thought it would be funny to recap them in this, the one where all the titles start with M, because they do. And it's just bizarre. I even write down all the books I read and literally they're written down and I'm like, yeah, that's all M's. So it looks very weird in my reading notebook. But I thought I would get into the first one, which humorously has two M's for the title, Mr. Magic. And it's by Kiersten White. It feels very set in the same universe as Hyde. I read the Hyde graphic novel really recently and they had this in my library. And I was super excited because I love the concept of like something from your childhood is either not what you remember, perhaps it was never real, maybe you made it up. Your childhood brain was maybe not really like true later in life. So I was super excited for this and I did really enjoy this. It's a quick read. If you've read Hyde, you may start to guess at aspects of the plot. I did guess one element of the plot. There is a podcast interviewer and that specific person I had ideas about, and it turned out I was true, but I'm not going to tell you anything. So the story itself follows Val, who does not remember anything before the age of 8. She does remember that her father took her to a ranch when she was 8 years old, and they were in hiding from that point on. When he dies, she feels kind of unmoored. She thinks she can finally leave because she hasn't left because he at a certain point got sick. She could not leave him. And now she's like, well, maybe I could go, maybe I could leave. But she's also very worried that someone is going to come for her because she has this innate feeling inside of her that she did something very wrong and they were in hiding because she did something. But she doesn't know what it was because she can't remember anything from before she was 8 years old and now she's 38. So she freaks out because when her father dies, the funeral is very small, but the owner of this ranch posts on her Facebook that there is going to be a wake at the ranch for her father. And she's like, someone's gonna come, someone's gonna find me, I don't know what's gonna happen, this is gonna be terrible, I'm so concerned. But what happens is 3 men arrive who are around her age, who are like, oh my gosh, Valentine! And she has no idea who they are. And it turns out they were all on the show. Mr. Magic, that she doesn't remember at all. They all remember everything. And so they're like not really allowed to tell her things because there's going to be this podcast. They're not really supposed to talk about it because the podcast wants it to be like new and fresh and like the podcast itself and whoever the interviewer is doesn't want them to have blurred memories or influence each other in any way. So it turns out that Val's mother, who she thought was dead, is alive and happens to be near this reunion that they're having for the Mr. Magic show. So Val winds up going with them. And there's a house in the desert that magically appears and apparently all their families live there. They'll be doing the interviews in the basement. There are more people. We also meet a woman who was on the show as a child whose name I cannot remember. Is it on the side? It's been a minute since I read these, so I don't know that I can remember everyone's name. Yes, Isaac is a big deal. He and Val have a very close connection. There's Javi, Marcus. Oh my gosh, what is the woman's name? There is someone who is introduced named Kitty that you will get more info on, and then Jenny. So Jenny is sort of like leading everything for this reunion, and as the story evolves we learn more about the Mr. Magic show and the show that has seemingly been on the air for forever. It's been a radio show, it became a TV show, it's a whole thing, whole like complicated mess of a history, but it keeps getting scrubbed from the internet. There are no recordings, there's nothing on the internet that you can find. It is wild and I absolutely love this. I'm obsessed with that idea, and I really love the podcast The Polybius Conspiracy that involved a video game and this sort of idea, kind of. And I really love this. I had a fun time reading it. I was like, oh, this is so fun, even though I did guess something. And then it does again feel like it's part of the Hyde universe, which would make sense if you've read Hyde in any capacity. So the next book is Goth by, I know it's Kate, and then I think it's Leth. It could be Leth. I think it's Leth. The story is drawn by Kate and also written. The entire story is Kate's. So you might think based on the cover, this is like a super cute story about a girl who happens to go to the mall and is a goth. It kind of is that, but there's also a lot of darker elements to the story. There is a trigger warning in here at the front in case. So there is a discussion on unwanted attention from an adult to a child. They do get into that in the story. It is very key to the story. So that is part of it. But our main character, whose name is Liv. Liv has moved to a new town with her mom. Things are happening with her parents. They're fighting a lot. And she's sort of starting over in this new town. In her previous town, there were issues when someone found out that she was interested in girls, so she's very paranoid about that, though she does wear a very fun button at the very beginning. So it's about her life. It sort of follows like start of school into wintertime. I really enjoyed this story. If you were into like gothy teen stuff, there are a lot of references that are very fun. But again, the story is heavier than you would think. I think it is great. I think a number of people should read it. I highly recommend it. I have been waiting to read this for forever. And I really enjoyed it. It's a graphic novel, so you can't really give anything away, but we are following Liv. There are crushes. There is the unwanted attention. That is gross. The writing of it is well done. The aspect of it itself in society is gross. But I really enjoyed it. Liv does make friends. There are adults that are looking out for Liv. There are some cute moments. I did really enjoy this. Also, the art was great. So the next book I read is Misery by Stephen King, which I've seen the movie a few times. I will say grosser than the movie. There's some more dark stuff that occurs. I'm not going to read the side. If you know Misery, if you don't, basically a writer whose name is Paul gets into a car accident. He is found by Annie Wilkes and then basically kept prisoner. And then kept prisoner even longer when she reads his most recent Misery book because she hates it and she wants him to write a new one that brings Misery back to life. During all of this, Paul has very injured legs from his car crash. He cannot walk, he cannot move, and worse things happen to his legs. He also at one point loses a thumb, which is not in the movie. A lot of people die, and Annie has a lot of mood swings. I enjoyed reading the book because I like the movie. I hated the ending. I had to read it. I'm so sorry. Asthma, and I'm not editing it out, but I do have asthma. But yeah, I read like the ending chapter multiple times and it's just goofy. Like Stephen King could have ended it earlier, and yet I was reading a weird chapter where it was like, Annie could be alive, Annie could be dead, and I was like, she's dead. It's fine. She's dead. It was interesting to read. There are portions of it that are in like handwriting and in typewritten, because we are also getting the Misery book that he is writing, which I thought was good. I did like reading that aspect. It was really hard for me to read the handwritten part. It's been a minute since I had to read someone's cursive. I could read it. I'm just glad that wasn't like a big section. But I did enjoy it. We got more into Annie and we did get to learn about Annie's background and her kind of murderous tendencies. So I did like it. It is creepier and grosser elements do occur than in the movie. So I'm glad I read it. I don't know if Stephen King is like super for me. I want to read Carrie, because I've also seen that movie and I do want to know like how that book is, just because I haven't read it and I've read some retellings. I don't know that I would rate this. Like, I don't really rate books, but like it was fine. I enjoyed it for the most part while I was reading it. I am starting to realize that I maybe don't like books that have male protagonists primarily. Like, I kind of wish this was from Annie's point of view, which would not happen because it's like, I don't think Stephen King would write it from Annie's point of view, but I would have been curious to see Annie's point of view of the story. So that would have been fun for me to read. I love an unreliable narrator, so that would have been fun. But I did enjoy reading it. I did enjoy knowing the source material from a movie I've seen a few times. On to the next one, which is completely different. So the next book is Mimosa by Archie, oh gosh, Bongiovanni, I think. I have read Grease Bats by Archie, and I've also read the quick and easy guide to they them pronouns. So I was really excited to read this. I got this on sale, which was very exciting because this is a hefty book. So this follows a group of 4 friends who are all in like their 30s, and they're realizing the life is a little different. So are they all listed on the side? That would be great. Yes. So there's Chris, Joe, Elise, and Alex. And we are watching their friendship group and their relationships outside of it. So Chris is contending with a divorce and co-parenting a child, while also feeling unattractive and like they are too old for the dating scene. Elise is having feelings for her boss, but also is hoping for a promotion. And so a lot of that story focuses on what she thinks is a relationship with the boss, and also the fallout that occurs when you have sex with your boss. Then Alex has a secret that we learn and makes a lot of people real mad. And I understand why. So I get it. And then the last one is Joe, who is balancing a number of jobs and dancing and working at queer rock camp. So this is a great story. There's a lot of diverse representation of just like points in your life, characters. The art is very fun. I have to make sure this is not... I like the art style. It's very minimalist. That's all I'm going to show you. There are some very graphic scenes that are not for children, which I am fine with. I really enjoyed this. I loved Grease Bats, so this felt like a more mature Grease Bats. I highly recommend this for queer folks because this was a delight. It was like a messy friendship group, sort of like the L Word, but better because more diverse, even more diverse than Generation Q. I really enjoyed this. I think it was a super fun read. Again, even though very hefty, it was very quick. I would definitely recommend it. I know I've said that already, but I really, really enjoyed that. And it was a nice break after Misery. And the final one, and hopefully I don't lose my voice because coughing already occurred. So we're gonna get on to Mexican Gothic, which I have waited ages to read. But they had it set out for Halloween at my library and I was like, yes. Okay, so this is by Silvia Moreno-Garcia, and this has been out for a while. I'm gonna cough again, and I'm so sorry. I knew this was gonna happen. The weather keeps changing, so my asthma acts up, and then when my asthma acts up, sometimes I cough more. But I'm gonna get into this really quick because I just finished this last night. So the story itself follows Noemi, who winds up going to where her cousin is, Catalina. I think it's Yes, did I pronounce that correctly? I may have made that up in my brain. It just calls her the cousin in this. Her name is mentioned later, but she goes to this place called High Point, where her cousin is and has been married, but has sent this frightening letter that something is going on. We get there, the house is gross. And again, I read What Moves the Dead, and this exact house seems like the place where my mold allergy would just be like, boom, done, you gotta leave. This would have never happened to me. I would have never been involved in this story because I would have died immediately. The mold in the house, or just bleh. She reads a moldy book, and I was like, I read a moldy book once. Like, it had water damage from a library. My hand swelled up, and I had a migraine for 2 days because I read it for class. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'd have died in this house before anything bad even happened. I'd just be like, ugh. But when she gets there, she meets Francis, who is a lovely character. His mother, Florence, Virgil, her cousin's husband, and then we're just gonna call him Doyle. He's gross, the patriarch. There's a discussion of like eugenics, which is vile, and Noemi is like, ew, you're awful and gross, and it gets way worse. Like, she learns a lot of things where she's like, oh god, you're just a gross man, for a number of reasons. We learn that the family is very insular, that they have run out of money, but they want to reopen the mines. They want to start over. They need to reassert themselves. Yeah. I do not want to tell you very much because, like, as you're going, the big reveals happen near the end, and it's just, a lot of it's real gross. There's a lot of mold. There's a lot of mushrooms. There's a lot of just gross. We get into some gross family dynamics. We learn control is a huge issue in the Doyle family. And yeah, I love this book so much, and I do not want to spoil it if you haven't read it, even though a million people have already. But I was just like, this is delightful. I loved reading it. I read it so fast. Noemi is a great main character for this story because she is very like, I am doing a thing, because she wants to protect her cousin, but everything is awful at this house. So I highly recommend, if you liked What Moves the Dead, definitely read it. If you like The Fall of the House of Usher, definitely read this book. There are so many things I loved about this book. So I highly recommend. I definitely think that everyone should read all the books I recommended. Unless you're not into Stephen King, then you can skip Misery. Or watch the movie. I'm ambivalent on Misery. It was fine. I just don't know that Stephen King is for me. I'm gonna give him another chance, but the only other Stephen King I've read is The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, and I don't remember it at all. I know there's a bear full of bees. Yeah, that's all I remember. But I recommend very highly 4 of the 5 of these. And Misery is up to you. I feel like Stephen King is like a love it or be ambivalent to it kind of thing. But all of these were very good. I loved Mr. Magic. I think you have to read it. I think in audiobook form it would be a little confusing because of all the inserts, but I did have a wonderful time. So if you love the sort of like, I don't know if things from my childhood are true, that's a good one. But a lot of these I just really enjoyed. I loved that there were queer characters in most of them. They don't appear in Mexican Gothic, though there's a lot of family dynamic stuff in there that is happening, but, or in Misery, but it's Misery. So in 3 of the 5. So I had a delightful time with all the titles that start with M. Let me know if you've read any of these, if you like this, if you'd rather me do sit downs than vlogs. It's up to you. Just let me know. But I had fun, and I'm also wearing a very comfy spiderweb sweatsuit that I haven't worn yet. But I'm gonna go. Let me know what you thought about the books in the comments below. You can subscribe or check out my old stuff if you are interested. But bye for now, internet people.